Hi guys, I have another coloring and card tutorial for you today, and today I'm coloring a Make It Craft image called Face Sunflowers, and today it's all about black. The challenge over at the Make It Crafty color blog, Make It Colorful, is shades of black. So that is what we are working with today. So this character is going to be colored completely in different kinds of grays. I'm only using the warm gray Copic colors, and then I'm using the warm gray Prisma colors. So it's both how to use color with black, but also how to use Polychromos color pencils with your Copics. I use them quite extensively, so I use them a lot. You don't have to use. Some people just use it for small details here and there, but I'm actually bringing my image to another level with the help of them. But having the Copic coloring in the background helps a lot. You don't have to put down at all as much color as you would want to do when you are using just the Polychromos. I have chosen to use some Nina cardstock when I'm coloring today, both because it does blend the Copics a little bit easier, or I've found that I blend easier on the Nina than on my Make It Crafty. I think it's two different kind of techniques from two different kind of papers. But also one of the biggest reason why I'm using the Nina is because it has a little bit more tooth, and therefore it works better with my pencils, because the pencils need a paper that have a little bit of tooth to lay down more easily. So that's why I use this kind of paper for this design. For her colors, I said I'm using all the warm grays, or I'm using all of the warm grays that have even layers. So the 0, the 2, the 4, the 6, the 8 and the 10, because they have a big enough gap to make a bit of a difference, but also a small enough gap to not to blend, keep the blending easily. So I'm going in here. One thing about working with blacks is also you can really practice on your blending and on your shaping. Where you put the shadows, how you put the shadows and all of that, because you don't have to think about if the color work together. You don't have to think about how you would make a good light to dark of that specific shade if you're after a specific shade. It's just grays, a gray scale, which makes the practice of coloring much easier. And I'm actually having a lot of fun doing this. I've been doing it more and more, just using the grays, no other colors, just the grays, and I have a lot of fun, because then you need to kind of just put the detailing to different lighter or darker to make things stand out. You make them a little bit darker to kind of fall back a little bit in the image, a little bit lighter to stand out a little bit, and try to get the balance of those two. So when it comes to the hair, I started with W6 and then I went all the back to W10, and this just because I wasn't really sure which kind of color that I wanted to have. I wanted to give her a very dark hair or a very light hair. I ended up making it somewhat dark, not adding too much of the W10 and W8, just the tips. I could have gone a little bit even darker by just elongating those areas, but I like how it turned out. Then I'm working on the flowers. I'm really working on getting that dimension into those flowers, meaning giving the shadows around the center, just to make it look like it's going into the flower, sort of. I hope you understand. I'm using from the 0 to the 6 to the 4 to do this. I'm using the same colors as I'm using for her skin, but it doesn't really matter because they aren't tone in tone. They just aren't placed beside each other, so you don't reflect over it. If you had if I have used the same colors but very close to her skin, they might kind of just fall into each other, and therefore you lose a whole bunch of the detail. But because the flowers doesn't touch the skin, it actually works out pretty good. When it comes to a dress, you can color this dress in so many different ways. I have chosen to kind of make it look like every one of those little bumps on her dress is a little pleat of some sort, or a little bend in the fabric. But you can also just color it as a rounded dress, like the dress is just rounded and just have that kind of edge. So those are the different ways. Now I'm starting with my Polychromos, and what I'm doing is that I'm going in with the darker pencils where I put the darker shadows with the Copics, and going out toward light. I'm also using the white pen, and when I work with pens, everyone have different techniques, but when I work with pens, I usually add the darkest first and then the lightest, and I don't blend them in together if I'm using the white, because the white I usually use to just lighten an area. I'm not using it to make things white because the Polychromos white doesn't have enough pigment to do that, but I use it to kind of make the area whiter. And the pencil works that way that if you actually lay down white beneath it, the pen you put over will actually look lighter than it actually is. So I put down my darker shadows and then my lightest highlights, and then I go from dark to light, just blending out those pencils as I go to make it a seamless area. This also helps sometimes when I do my Copics, I get them a little bit streaky. By adding these pencils on top, I actually kind of remove that streakiness of the Copic coloring. So that is also a tip. If you have pencils, you don't have to do this. The Copic coloring was pretty good as it was. I probably would have taken more care with the hair if I didn't know that I was going over with my color pencils, but otherwise the Copic coloring was really nice. But I wanted to kind of just deepen the darks and lighten the lights and make it more contrasty and more seamless. So also when I work with my color pencils, it's easier for me to go from pen to pen to pen and just go between different pencils, because I can't show you the lids because they don't have lids, so I just go through them. But I'm using all of the warm grays that Polychromos has, and the white and the black. And the black pencil I use for her eyes and for her hair, and those are the only places I actually add the black to, even more deepen the shadows. As you see, I'm trying to kind of elongate those little pleats that she has in her dress, and then just after I've gone through a couple of colors, I go in with the white, and then I go in with a lighter grey on top of the white, because I don't want bright white, I just want it lighter than I could get with the lightest grey. So this is one way to get dimension in that kind of dress. And then we come to her hair. No, her eyes first. Look, I thought I already had done that. But her eyes, this is one of the things I really like by doing her eyes, because the color pencil I'm using, the Polychromos, don't lay down a perfect full layer. They are when I put them very light, you see the material underneath very much, and that is why you can see the shadows. And by building them layer to layer with different colors, you actually get the eye to look a lot more deeper than you get when you just use the Copics. Also, the really nice thing I like with the white is that I can actually use the white pen and layer on top to make the lighter in her eyes a little bit lighter, which I can't do with Copics, because when you have put down a dark Copics, the only way to really move it around is with the blender, and that can leave it look a little bit off. So that's also one of the reasons why I really like working with the Polychromos on top of my Copics. This video is a little bit longer than I usually make, just because I've used the Polychromos. I think it took me, when the footage was edited down for the coloring, removing all the pen switches in the Copics and such, I think the footage was about 1.5 hours. So I think I sat for about 2 hours or something with this image alone, coloring it. And then I knew what I wanted to do with it. It takes much longer if you really don't know, when you have to kind of figure out on the way. But this time I knew, so yeah. And I'm working a lot with the hair. I did it a little bit too dark in some places, so you can't really see all the depth, but I tried to make it really dark with the hair which is further away than the other one. The hair that is covered, I tried to give it a little bit more shades, so that the hair that isn't covered got a little bit more brightness. Trying to add even more, a little bit more of a 3D feeling in the image. And also here I work with, I think, three or four dark grays before I go in with the white pen and add highlights on the most highlighted parts, and then I'm going in with a gray on top of that highlight, or one of the lighters gray on top of that highlights, just to tone them down a little bit and make them feel a little bit more gray than white, because the white can feel a little bit cloudy. So I actually cut that image out, but I didn't put the footage in here because this video is long enough anyway. I'm using some my mind's eye papers today. Actually just one sheet of paper, which I put on a standard A2 card base, or a layer, and then onto the card base. So I wanted to make a simple card because the coloring is so busy. I'm using this little die from Hero Arts, and I actually cut it out in 2 colors, trying to figure out which I wanted. But the black actually stood out much better on the background, and it wasn't too much. And I decided I wanted to have a little bit of stamping also, and I'm actually going to stamp on one of those stripes. The sentiment that came with that die actually fitted pretty good on those stripes. So I'm using some My Mind's Eye, MFT licorice hybrid ink for the sentiment, which says sending hugs. And then I'm using my SIG two-way glue pen to make small glue dots all over the whole die cut, and then I take my tweezers and I'm trying to put it down. It didn't really want to get loose from the tweezers, but it works. So that is the kind of sentiment, and then I put some foam tape beneath her. I really like to have the stripes horizontally, because then the paper itself grounded her and I didn't have to have more than that. I'm also just using some tape to add her onto a basil marshmallow card base. But I wanted something more because I felt it was quite empty down in the left corner. So I'm using a couple of these crystals. I think it's crystals, but these are completely black, so they aren't see-through crystals. I think they're white, black, and clear on that sheet. But I thought these black ones would fit perfectly. And this was one of the things I did a lot back in the day. I added small crystals in the corner to kind of tie that corner into the rest of the image. And I really like to use 3 or 5 of them, because an uneven amount is more pleasing to the eye than an even amount. I don't know why, but that's the rule, and I usually feel that it looks good that way. So I'm putting 5 of them in the corner to kind of just frame that corner into the image. And that was the card for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like it, please thumbs it up. It means a lot to me. If you have any questions, just comment down below. Down below you have all the details of the cards and a link to my blog. And here you have 2 more videos using the Make It Crafty images. Thank you so much for watching, and bye!